She told herself later that she had not meant to miss the train. She had been telling herself that for the better part of a year, and she had gotten quite good at it. Which is how she knew it was not entirely true. The train had stopped at Clayton Creek for 12 minutes. A water stop, the conductor said. 12 minutes. And she had stepped onto the platform with her 2 bags to stretch her legs after 3 days of sitting, because she had learned early in life that there is a difference between what you are supposed to endure and what your body is willing to accept. She had set her bags on the platform and walked to the far end and stood in the thin September air with the Colorado mountains in the west doing what Colorado mountains do in September, which is be tremendous and entirely indifferent to human plans. She had looked at them for what felt like a reasonable amount of time. When she turned back, the train was gone. She stood on the empty platform with her 2 bags and the address of a Nevada rancher she had never met, and the particular silence of a woman who has done something she is not yet prepared to call a decision. She was 38 years old, and her name was Clara Voss, and she had been the most competent person in most rooms she had entered for the better part of 2 decades. Her father had died when she was 17, leaving her mother and 3 younger siblings, and a house in Cincinnati that required managing by someone, and Clara had been the person available. She had managed it. She had kept the household through the lean years, and then the slightly less lean years, had seen her siblings grown and gone, had nursed her mother through the illness that came in 1871, and then the worse illness that came in 1878, and then the final illness that had concluded in January of this year. She had been 38 years old in January, which is old enough to know that 12 years of being needed is its own kind of education, and young enough to understand that the education had a gap in it where a life should have been. Her mother had left her the house in Cincinnati, and a sum of money that was modest but real, and the sudden experience of waking up in a house with no one to tend to, which had felt at first like rest and then like something else that she did not have a word for. She had sold the house in April. She had found the advertisement in a Cincinnati paper in May. The Ohio papers ran them regularly, the wants of the Western Territories arriving in the East with the particular optimism of land that had more space than people. A Nevada rancher named Howell, 44, established cattle operation, seeking a capable woman for a practical arrangement. She had answered because she was capable, and because the alternative was staying in a city where she knew everyone she had ever been to the person who took care of things, and because the advertisement had said capable and not young or pretty or compliant. And she had found that she responded to being addressed honestly. They had corresponded for 4 months. Howell's letters described the ranch and the livestock and the climate and the work expected. Thoroughgoing practical letters written by a practical man. They were not unkind. They described a life in specific terms. In 17 letters he had not asked her a single question about herself. Not what she had read, not what she thought about. Not what she had wanted before the wanting had been set aside. He had asked whether she was in good health, which she was, whether she could cook, which she could, whether she minded early mornings, which she minded in the way all people mind them and managed anyway. That was the extent of his curiosity about who she was, which she had told herself was practical, and which she had been telling herself less convincingly the further west the train had taken her. She had read the letters again on the train. All 17 of them, in order, with the Colorado plains going past the window and the September light changing the color of the grass from gold to amber to something that had no name in the colors she knew. He had described the kitchen. He had described the number of cattle. He had described the distance to the nearest church, which she had not asked about. He had not asked her what she was afraid of, which she would have answered honestly if he had. That she had spent so long being needed that she did not know what she was when she was not. She had been looking at the mountains going past the window for 2 hours. They were the most dramatic landscape she had ever seen. They did not care what she decided. They were simply there, occupying their enormous space, which was its own kind of answer to a question she had not been able to form properly. She had folded the letters and looked at the mountains and thought about Howell's kitchen with the good iron range, and about the root cellar, and about the 200 head of cattle that required managing. She had thought about who she would be in that kitchen, and decided she knew exactly who she would be. She had thought about who she was right now, on the platform in the thin September air, and decided she did not know, and decided that not knowing was important information of a kind she had not had before. Then the train had left. The general store was the first building she came to on the main street of Clayton Creek that was open. A sign in the window said open 7-6 on Sat, and it was a Tuesday and it was 3 in the afternoon and she went in. The man behind the counter was broad-shouldered and dark-haired, and had the look of a man who had been in the same room for a very long time, and had arranged everything in it exactly where he wanted it. He looked up when the bell above the door rang. He did not look alarmed. He said, "Help you?" She said, "I missed the train. When is the next one?" He said, "Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock." She said, "Is there somewhere I can sit while I wait?" He looked at her 2 bags. He looked at her. He said, "Counter's got a stool?" She sat on the stool. He went back to what he had been doing, which appeared to be organizing a shelf of dry goods with the quiet, methodical attention of a man for whom this was not a chore but simply the current state of the world that he was addressing. Neither of them spoke for a while. She found that she did not mind. His name was Owen Marsh, and he had been the proprietor of the Clayton Creek General Store for 11 years, which was the length of time he had been in Clayton Creek, which was the sum of his marriage and the 4 years since his wife Margaret had died of a summer fever in 1879. He had come to Clayton Creek from Kansas City at 35, which had seemed like a late start and had turned out to be the beginning of everything he would be. Margaret had come with him. She had been the one who wanted to go west, actually, who had found the possibility of the store and convinced him that a general store in a growing territory town was a better investment than the dry goods work he had been doing in Kansas City for someone else's benefit. She had been right. She had been right about most things, which he had acknowledged at the time imperfectly and in retrospect completely. She had run the household behind the store and helped with the accounts and had had opinions about the placement of every item on every shelf, which had occasionally irritated him and which he now thought about in the quiet moments of the morning before the store opened, not because he wanted to move anything. He had moved nothing, but because thinking about her opinions about where things should go was a way of thinking about her that felt manageable. The store earned him between $300 and $500 profit annually, depending on the winter. A pound of coffee ran 14 cents. Calico went at 12 cents a yard. He kept his prices fair and his inventory current and his accounts accurate, and in return the town of Clayton Creek brought him its needs on a reliable schedule. He was not unhappy. He was not happy in the way he had once been happy, which was the way of people who have had something and lost it, not dramatically, but with the specific diminishment of a life that continues with something missing from the center of it. He had decided, at some point in the years since Margaret died, that this was how things were and that the decision was made and that he would run the store correctly and go fishing on Sundays, and that would be the shape of it. He had been living inside this decision for 4 years without examining it too carefully, which is how it had remained intact. Clara stayed on the stool for 2 hours. At 5 o'clock she said, "Do you have anything I could eat? I'll pay," he said. "I've got crackers and cheese, 20 cents. She said she'd take it. He put it on the counter and she ate it neatly, and he watched her from the corner of his attention and thought about the particular efficiency of someone who has been managing their own meals for a long time and has no interest in ceremony. At 6 o'clock he began closing the store. She stood and asked if there was a hotel in town. He said there was not. She asked if there was anywhere to stay. He said there was a room in the back. He said it had a cot and a window, and it was nothing special. He said she could have it for the night, 25 cents. She said that was fair. She paid him and he showed her the room, which was small and had a window that looked at the side of the building next door, and a cot and a table and an oil lamp. She said it was fine. He made supper in the kitchen behind the store. Something simple, because it was what he made every night, which was something simple. And he made enough for 2 without making a decision about it. He called through the doorway and she came out and sat across the table from him and they ate. He asked, after a while, where she was headed. She said Nevada. He said, "What's in Nevada?" She looked at her plate. She said, "I was going to be married." She said it in the past tense and then heard herself say it and said, "I am going to be married to a rancher. I have his address." He said, "Is that so?" She said, "Yes." He said nothing more about it. She was grateful for this in a way she did not examine too carefully. She read Howell's letters again that night in the back room by the light of the oil lamp. All 17 of them. She had been on a train for 3 days and had read them twice already, and she read them again, looking for something she was not sure she was looking for, and she did not find it. And at some point she understood that the thing she was looking for was not in the letters because it had never been put there. In 17 letters he had described a life and invited her to fill a role in it. He had not asked what she was like. He had not asked what she found worth noticing. He had asked whether she was in good health and whether she could cook and whether she minded early mornings. She minded early mornings the way most people mind them. She woke up and did them anyway. That was the extent of his curiosity about her. She folded the letters and put out the lamp. In the morning she came out at 6:30 to find Owen already at the counter. The store opened and organized, coffee on the back stove. He poured a cup without asking and set it on the counter. She sat on the stool. She drank the coffee. The clock on the wall said 6:45. The train came at 8. She had an hour and 15 minutes, and her bags were in the back room, and she was sitting at the counter drinking coffee, and neither of those facts seemed to be moving toward each other. Owen was doing inventory, counting something in a ledger with the focused attention of a man for whom this is one of approximately 12 tasks that requires doing before noon on a Wednesday. She watched him work. She had been watching people work her whole life and had learned to read the quality of a person's attention from the way they did things. His attention was complete and unhurried, and he did each thing once without having to redo it. She found this restful in a way she did not try to explain. At 7:15 she said, "What time did you say the train comes?" He said, 8 o'clock. She said, He went back to the ledger. She went back to the coffee. The clock on the wall moved with the particular indifference of clocks, which do not care what is decided in the rooms they measure. At 7:25 she turned on the stool and looked at the window. The platform was visible through the glass, empty in the early morning light. The mountains in the west, the particular blue of September mountains before the sun has fully arrived. She had a train ticket in her coat pocket. She had 17 letters in her bag. She had 2 bags in the back room. She had a cup of coffee going cool in her hand and a stool at a counter in a town she had not planned to stop in, and the specific sensation of a person who has been moving purposefully towards something for 4 months and has, in the past 18 hours, stopped being entirely sure what she is moving toward. Owen said, without looking up from the ledger, at 7:30. "You don't have to go," she said. "I know," he said. "I mean, you can stay at the counter as long as you need. There's no schedule," she said. "I know that's what you mean." He went back to the ledger. She looked at the platform. The clock said 7:32. She thought about the 17 letters. She thought about the specific question Howell had not asked in any of them, which was who she was when she was not being useful to someone. She had been asking herself that question since January and had not arrived at an answer. But she had noticed, in the past 18 hours, that sitting at this counter she had been something more specific than useful. She had been present. She had been herself, without editing, in the company of a man who had not asked her any particular version of herself and had not appeared to require one. She could not say whether that was him or the town or the particular accident of the platform, and she decided it did not matter which. She put her cup down. She got up from the stool. She put her cup down. She looked at the window for another moment. Then she got up and went to the back room and came back carrying her canvas work apron, still folded from the packing. She set her bags down by the back wall. She tied the apron on, which she had done 10,000 times, and which took approximately 12 seconds. And she went around the counter to Owen's side and said, "What needs doing?" He looked at her. He looked at the apron. He said, "The morning delivery came in yesterday and I haven't sorted it." She said, "Show me the system." He showed her. She understood it in 20 minutes, which was faster than he had expected, and they were both still working when they heard the train come in at 8 and go out at 8:12, and neither of them went to the window. The morning passed in the useful rhythm of a working store. A rancher came in for nails, a woman for coffee and dried beans, a young man for rope who lingered by the candy display. Clara learned the layout with the efficiency of someone who has organized households for 20 years and knows the logic of any space is findable if you watch how people move through it. Owen watched her learn it from his peripheral attention and said nothing. In the afternoon, a woman named Mrs. Hendricks came in for flour and sugar and a spool of thread and left, having also purchased a tin of pepper and 2 yards of calico that Clara suggested when she noticed the woman's hand resting briefly on the bolt. Owen watched this from the back of the store and said nothing about it when Mrs. Hendricks left. He said, "You know how to sell," Clara said. "I know how to pay attention." He said, "That's the same thing," she said. "Not quite." At 6 o'clock, he closed the store. Clara began on the supper because she had learned where the pots were in the morning, and because it was apparent that supper was not being made by anyone else. He set the table. He knew where the plates were with the same certainty he knew where the inventory was, and they ate. He said, "The man in Nevada, did he know you might not be coming?" She said, "I sent a telegram from Durango. I said I'd been delayed." He said, "That's technically true." She said, "Yes." He said, "Are you going to send another one?" She looked at her plate. She said, "I imagine it depends on what tomorrow looks like." He looked at her. He said, "Tomorrow the store opens at 7. She said, "I'll be up by 6. He said, "You don't need to be." She said, "I know." A silence settled between them. The particular kind of silence that isn't empty but has something in it that neither person is ready to name. He said, "The inventory system takes some time to learn properly. A few weeks at least," she said. "I noticed it was more complex than it looks," he said. "The back shelves especially." She said, "I'll work on those tomorrow." He said, "All right." Another pause. He said, "The room in the back is yours for as long as you need it," she said. "And if I needed it for a while." He looked at her across the table. This woman who had come in from a train platform with 2 bags and a plan that was no longer entirely a plan, and who had learned his inventory system in 20 minutes, and who had sold Mrs. Hendricks calico by paying attention. He said, "As long as it takes," she said. "That's a generous offer." He said, "It's a practical one. The store runs better with someone who knows the system." She said, "I don't know the system yet." He said, "No, but you will." She looked at him for a long moment, long enough to be deciding something. She said, "All right." She picked up her fork. He picked up his. Outside, the evening came down on Clayton Creek with the particular gold of a Colorado September settling into autumn, and neither of them said anything else that needed to be said that night, which was enough. It was the first morning in 8 months she had woken up knowing exactly what she needed to do, not because she had been told and not because it was required of her, but because she had decided. The distinction was small and enormous simultaneously. She had written the telegram at the small desk in the back room before 6, standing in the early gray, with the particular steadiness of a woman who has made a genuine decision and is done reconsidering it. She sent the telegram the following morning before the store opened. She wrote it standing at the small desk in the back room with Owen's pen and a piece of paper she had asked him for the night before. It said, "Mr. Howell, I will not be coming to Nevada. I am sorry. I wish you well." She signed her name and folded it and walked it to the telegraph office 2 doors down and handed it over the counter and paid for the words and walked back. Owen was opening the shutters when she came in. He looked at her. She tied on her apron. She said, "The back shelves." He said, "Second row from the right needs recounting." She went to the second row from the right. He went back to the shutters. The morning came in through the front window the way it had come in the morning before, and the morning before that, and he had the particular sensation of a man noticing that something has changed in a room he thought he knew completely. Not moved, not replaced, just changed. The way light changes a room by arriving in it, which is not the room's doing and not the light's doing exactly, but something that happens between them. She never explained to him exactly why she had missed the train. He never asked. Some things are explained by what follows them, and what followed it was the back shelves counted correctly and Mrs. Hendricks becoming a regular customer for calico, and a system of inventory that took 6 weeks to learn, and a second chair at the kitchen table that stopped being an addition and became simply where the second chair was. She had been careful about most things her whole life. She had not been careful about the train. She was no longer sorry about that.